observe, we're only aware of the vaccine injuries where essentially people are so hyper aware of the connection between these things that they almost self-identify, because we have this infrastructure that disincentivizes it, and we fund this system. It is federal money that funds healthcare in this country, and we simply should not tolerate that. Thank you so much for filling this leadership vacuum. I yield back.
Thank you, Congressman Gates. Well, here in the shadow Congress, we do talk about the VAERS reports, and these are the numbers.
That is how the MAGA Republicans are spending their time. Marjorie Taylor Greene, Matt Gaetz, and others spreading disinformation about COVID. I'm Ben Meiselas from the MeidasTouch Network. This as our government is on the verge of a shutdown. The last continuing resolution bill set as a deadline this upcoming Friday, November 17th. That is when the government will shut down unless another continuing resolution needs to be passed. If it's not passed, there will be a shutdown. And now a lot of MAGA Republicans, a lot of right-wing extremists are turning against their speaker, MAGA Mike Johnson, who they were all raving about after he did two things. Number one, saying that he's not prepared to really get back into the impeachment inquiry against President Biden at the current moment. And then also he proposed what's called, or what he made up, a laddered continuing resolution. Under this laddered continuing resolution process, the government would be funded, parts of it would be funded agriculture, transportation, and veterans affairs through January 19th, and defense and other remaining portions of the government would be funded through February 2nd. MAGA Mike announced this on his social media platform, on X or whatever the heck it's called now. A two-step continuing resolution is a necessary bill to place House Republicans in the best position. Well, other House Republicans are not buying this, and lots of Republican influencers are turning against MAGA Mike. By the way, at least 8 House Republicans are already opposing the continuing resolution plan, meaning that it won't pass without the support of Democrats, and we could be seeing MAGA Mike losing the speakership. As Simon Rosenberg explained, Republicans are severely degrading the ability of Senate and House to function, severely degrading the capacity of the Department of Defense, State, and Department of Homeland Security in a time of rising threat, undermining the rule of law, pledging to end American democracy. The insurrection against the United States never ended. Let's take a look at some of these MAGA influencers. Here's a tale in 3 parts from the End Wokeness account. They say, Rep. MAGA Mike Johnson looks to be a great choice for the Speaker of the House. And then they posted a photo of MAGA Mike and his family. And in their own bizarre mind, they think that this somehow triggers the pro-democracy community, because there's a picture posted of MAGA Mike's family. What are you talking about? But the End Wokeness account goes, this picture of Speaker Mike Johnson will trigger all the right people. That's not what triggers people. It's the fact that MAGA Mike wants to take away women's reproductive rights. It's the fact that MAGA Mike is okay with adding $8 trillion of debt. It's the fact that MAGA Mike doesn't have a credit or savings or checkings account, or checking or savings account, despite the fact that he makes about $205,000 a year, and then says it's because he's of limited means, even though he's earning more money than most Americans are, and that just simply doesn't add up. It's MAGA Mike's behavior in blaming women's reproductive care on the reason why he wants to cancel Social Security and Medicare. Those are the reasons that trigger people, because he's taking away people's freedoms and then gaslighting and saying, oh, I'm just trying to deliver you freedom. Just let me take away your freedom. But here's how the End Wokeness count left it, their most recent post in the past 48 hours. Speaker Mike Johnson is turning out to be a massive disappointment. He may be even worse than McCarthy. The GOP is broken beyond repair. And numerous other MAGA influencers have reiterated this point recently. Yes, the honeymoon phase is over. Republicans are fighting about not being extreme enough. Again, how long before Mike Johnson gets vacated? Great quote there by Sawyer Hackett. Here's what Cernovich, right-wing influencer, says. Speaker Mike Johnson, there's insufficient evidence at the moment to initiate formal impeachment proceedings. And Cernovich goes, congratulations, everyone, sarcastically. And then Marjorie Taylor Greene says, not long ago, we had a speaker that believed in impeachment so much that he launched an inquiry without a floor vote. But you were told he was bad. After 8 Republicans and all Democrats ousted him, we found checks to Joe Biden and evidence of massive money laundering scheme. Just all they do is defame and lie. They're so extreme. It is so utterly absurd. By the way, here is MAGA Mike Johnson on an interview he gave last weekend with Fox, where he says the reason he doesn't have a checking or savings account is because he's just a man of modest means. Play this clip.
No, but I have to ask you this because there's been so much made about it. Vanity Fair says this. What's up with Mike Johnson's very shady seeming financial disclosures? They say you've never reported a bank account or an asset on a financial disclosure form going back to 2016. Can you clear that up for us?
Yes, look, I'm a man of modest means, okay? I was a lawyer, but I did constitutional law, and most of my career I spent in the nonprofit sector. We have 4 kids, 5 now, that are very active, and I have kids in graduate school, law school, undergraduate. We have a lot of expenses, but I can relate to everybody else. My father was a firefighter, right? I didn't grow up with great means, but I think that helps us be a better leader because we can relate to every hardworking American family. That's who we are, and I think it governs and helps govern my decisions and how I lead.
Well, a majority of Americans now say they're living paycheck to paycheck, so a lot of folks in the same boat as they try to figure out this economy. Speaker.
Well, a new report by the Daily Beast actually says, no, it's not that he's a man of modest means. He's a man of very shady means. An article by Roger Sullenberger, a great reporter over at the Daily Beast, goes, Mike Johnson's shady finances are already coming back to bite him. And one of the things it cites there is an ethics complaint that was just filed by End Citizens United. A letter by Tiffany Muller, one of the heads of End Citizens United, explains to the chief counsel of the House of Congressional Ethics that we are writing to request that the Office of Congressional Ethics immediately investigate Speaker Mike Johnson for his repeated violations of ethics in the Government's Act. As Speaker, it is essential that Johnson report the information required under the Act so the public is granted full disclosure of his finances. Without this information, the public is blinded from knowing whether Speaker Johnson may have certain conflicts of interest. As demonstrated below, Speaker Johnson blatantly omitted reportable information and made numerous errors in several of his filings. Specifically, Speaker Johnson failed to disclose multiple trips paid for by private entities, the sources of his spouse's earned income, and 3, his spouse's ownership interest in a privately held business. It also appears the Speaker likely failed to disclose reportable bank accounts, retirement assets, and honoraria earned by his spouse. In fact, Speaker Johnson has not reported a single asset held by his spouse in the 7 years that he has been filing financial disclosure reports. And then it goes on to provide the various facts. For example, the Act requires filers to disclose travel they accepted that was paid for by private sources or a foreign government if the cost of travel exceeds the statutory threshold. For calendar years 2020 through 2022, the threshold was $415. When disclosing reportable travel, filers are required to list the identity of the trip sponsor, the dates, the cities of departure, destination, and return, whether the filer was accompanied by a family member, and whether the filer was provided with food and lodging. Speaker Johnson failed to report at least 2 separate trips that were paid for by private sources. In February 2020, Speaker Johnson and his spouse traveled to Israel on an all-expenses-paid trip sponsored by 12 Tribe Films Foundation. In total, the trip cost approximately $17,950. Despite this trip being paid for by a private source and exceeding the $415 threshold, Speaker Johnson failed to report it. The Israel trip was not the only reportable travel the Speaker chose not to disclose. In his financial statements, he also accepted a free trip in April 2022 to Williamston, Kentucky, which was paid for by Answers in Genesis, a group associated with a fringe evangelical movement called Young Earth Creationism. According to public records, the cost of that trip exceeded $415. yet it was not disclosed. Then it goes, Speaker Johnson failed to disclose the sources of his spouse's earned income. The act also requires filers to report the source and type of their spouse's earned income that aggregate over $1,000 from a single source during the reporting period. Earned income includes compensation services, etc. Filers must identify the sources. On multiple statements, Speaker Johnson disclosed that his wife earned income, but failed to report the source of income. Rather than naming the entity making the payment, Johnson merely listed sources of income as self-employment and multiple clients. By omitting the name of the source, Johnson defeated the entire purpose of disclosure. Johnson failed to disclose his spouse's interest in an LLC that she owns. Speaker Johnson's wife owns a company, Onward Christian Counseling Services, LLC. According to records filed with the Louisiana Secretary of State, she is the sole manager of the company, which was formed in 2017 and appears to still be active today. While the company's website was recently taken down, not suspicious at all, it used to provide biographical information about his wife, explaining that she is the president and founder of the company. If Speaker Johnson's wife's interest in the company is valued at more than $1,000 or generated more than $200 in unearned income, he's required to disclose it. And then it goes to the bank accounts and explains that he's earning $205,000 a year. So it's inexplicable that he's not earning enough money to have a checking or a savings account, which if he didn't would still be raising a number of red flags. So Johnson's taking a lot of heat right now from his own party. You got the MAGA Republican influencers turning against him. You have all of these shady dealings emerging. That's why I wanted to take the time to go through that letter so you understand the magnitude of this. And you have MAGA Republicans spending these remaining days before a shutdown spreading their COVID conspiracies and wanting impeachment inquiries and all of this ridiculous stuff that Americans rejected in the November 7th, 2023 election. There you have it, folks. I'm Ben Meiselas from the MeidasTouch Network. We will keep you updated with more news about the looming government shutdown. Hit subscribe so that you're kept up to date on all this breaking news. And also check us out at patreon.com/MeidasTouch. And have an excellent day.
Hey Meidas Mighty, love this report? Continue the conversation by following us on Instagram @MeidasTouch to keep up with the most important news of the day. What are you waiting for? Follow us now.